really important disclosure that I have to give you. We'll have some forward-looking statements today. We're going to be looking at data and analyst reports. They're not intended to be investment, legal, or tax advice for you. So we really want to look at what analysts think about the category more broadly, right? So what is the metaverse? What is the potential? Stocks in general are priced in part of the street's ability to understand the technology and to see its utility. A good example of that is Palantir. Palantir is building some crazy good tech, but no one really understands it, and the stock is struggling because of that. And there's a big part of concern on analyst side that something like that might happen to Meta. Consumers might not fully grasp the potential or the kind of size of the opportunity. So the second big question here is the time for the metaverse really now? Stability right now is really, really important to investors. And even the change of the name of the company has caught a lot of waves with analysts and with retail investors because it's positioning the company from something we understand and something that feels safe to something that is volatile, feels new, and something that we don't understand. And that perception often bleeds over to the valuation of the stock. And the third thing is Meta's basically, potentially going to become the like another Tesla. So we're definitely seeing a lot of attention going to the patents that Meta is filing because a lot of the things that Zuckerberg is talking about aren't really real yet. Analysts are really looking at patents and really, looking at like what does this future really look like or feel like to sort of figure out their pricing. So really quickly, how to position the metaverse. The metaverse lives in what we call Web 3.0, or like the third iteration of the internet. Simply put, we went from just using the internet in this kind of almost vector-like format in Web 1.1 to making it mobile in Web 1.2, and now kind of decentralizing it in Web 1.3. There's another concern amongst analysts that the way that Facebook runs as a company is not conducive with the Web 3.0 movement, which, broadly, this movement gives a lot more power to creators. It relies a lot on user-generated content. It kind of has an underlying economy that's based on anonymity. Facebook, really relies on a social graph and has a lot of very tough policy around verifying real identity. And that's really not jiving with how, the third iteration of the internet is conceived, especially the concept of lack of privacy and kind of sharing full identity. The metaverse is also really, really big. There's a lot of players in the market. Meta is just one of many. And in normal circumstances, a company of Meta's size can just look at this chart and go pick someone to buy and jumpstart their effort. And that's what many of their competitors like Microsoft are doing. Meta can't do that right now. There's really powerful antitrust headwinds, both in the US and the EU. So they're not the top company that analysts think about when they think about the metaverse. Actually, there's a lot of other darlings in this category. So Roblox, Unity, NVIDIA, to a lesser extent, even Microsoft, Google, and Apple are kind of considered a bit more favorable in this category as well. So there's a lot more competition where they're going, and there's a lot of folks ahead of them where they're going that have much better positioning. So kind of broadly, I think Goldman basically positions the metaverse as a really, really huge opportunity. But what they have concerns about in this report is the time horizon for Meta in particular. So Mark Zuckerberg is basically talking a 10-year plan. A lot of companies are much closer to now. And 10 years is a very long time to wait, especially in the face of companies like Roblox that are already in the metaverse space and are already able to monetize now. And of course, the elephant in the room is VR adoption is not growing. So there's companies who are able to build metaverse experience without hardware reliance on VR. Those companies are seen as much more competitive right now. First, because it's much cheaper. There's a lot less cost. Second, because like we talked about, the price of everything is going up, including commodities, which we use to build everything, including labor. And if Facebook is going to be building hardware where it's going to be pretty expensive to do that in an economy like what we're seeing right now. And you can see from all the patents that Meta has been filing recently that it's heavily, heavily focusing on commerce. So example, they filed a patent letting people buy food in the metaverse that'll be delivered to them in real life. So like a virtual DoorDash, buying tickets for virtual events. So basically, unlike previous attempts, like for instance, Second Life, that focus on the creator economy, Meta's really focusing on commerce. And a lot of these patents are really geared to the full immersive VR experience and less geared to what's possible now. A lot of them talk about what's possible in the future. And that's actually making analysts fairly worried because they see the opportunity could be huge. They're just not sure what is the world going to look like in 10 years. Another kind of high level spend. This is a really big concern for analysts in almost every single report, and that's how much money Meta has been spending. What every single analyst, and I'll show you in a second, wants to see, without a single exception, is that Meta is able to reach its goal before the 10-year mark. That's not a surprise, right? So if we're able to see some of that spending tapering down, then it is very highly likely that we're going to see the stock going back up. And then the last kind of Goldman chart that I want to show you is, and I find this really interesting, is this chart here. So basically, let me break this down for you because it just looks like a circle and some bars. It does not really make sense if you just look at it at first glance. But here's what I see when I look at it. So first, on the left-hand side, we see people spend about equal time watching videos as interacting on social media. And there's very low appetite in using apps for education. And this is interesting because it has implications of whether Meta is going to be able to use Horizon for work or for education, which are the two big use cases that were being sold right now. So it looks like people don't actually like using apps for that, and there's not kind of a built-in behavior around that currently. And then if you look to the right, there's some people spending where people are spending their time. You see that gaming dominates both video and social. And this is surprising to many people when they first look at this chart. This is a big, big reason why analysts right now are jazzed about Microsoft of all companies. So Microsoft is like long been the snooze fest of tech. Like nobody cares what the hell happens there. They don't, necessarily hire the most exciting people on earth, but they're outrunning everyone because they've been really smart with how they spend their money. They went out and they bought like the best gaming studios. Even Bethesda spent a few $1 billion on that because they don't have antitrust issues. They've been making good with the government left, right, and center. And so Meta has to build this from scratch. Microsoft just bought it. And what Microsoft bought with it is the entire community that comes with all of these games, which Meta has to actually build from scratch too. Yes, Meta has a social graph. Meta has a ton of users. Moving these users from point A to point B is a completely different exercise than having a seated community with people who have been adopters of this for like a decade, right? So it's a completely different ballpark. And if you look at digitization and penetration of how much money is there in a metaverse, which obviously then tells us, is Meta going to make money? And do investors believe that the stock is going to go up? Well, the TAM, or the total addressable market, is actually fairly large, but it's very, very low for things like education, which can be compared to like workplace. Very high for retail, which is a really big focus for Meta. That's actually extremely encouraging. Not as high for advertising, and actually very high for music. So these are very surprising things to look at. And this is based on what we see is getting monetized already in places like Roblox. The report really breaks down how Roblox has been able to create an entire economy where both creators are able to make money and they kind of run their own currency with their own exchange rate. And they're able to monetize quite a bit for virtual events. So if you want to know if Meta will be successful, kind of the core question really becomes, how successful do you think Roblox is going to be? Because Meta is going to be basically like a better version of it potentially, right? Best case scenario. So studying Roblox right now in current state can actually help inform a lot about whether or not you think Meta has good prospects.